Oh, good. 5 of us in the same car for 7 hours. That's going to be fun. Next time on Landman.
You don't even know what game you're playing, do you?
Let's not forget who we're burying, all right?
Snakes are cannibals, did you know that? My business is similar, but we have a code. We only eat other snakes.
Are you calling Tommy a snake?
He's a hawk, and hawks, they eat snakes too.
Episode 4 of Landman Season 2 isn't just another chapter. It's the moment the ground shifts. The moment ordinary routines turn into something far more dangerous. A Day of Reckoning isn't a title chosen by accident. It's a warning. And if there's one thing this show has taught us, it's that warnings in West Texas are rarely subtle and never harmless. There's something about quiet mornings in the oil fields that always feels uneasy, like the land itself is holding its breath. Episode 4 leans into that feeling immediately, giving us a glimpse of the day that will alter the Norris family forever. From the first few moments, it becomes clear that nothing about this episode is meant to ease you in gently. This is Landman after all. Peace is temporary, and the storm never stays far behind. What begins as a normal day quickly spirals into tragedy when a sudden, brutal crash rips through the silence. It's the kind of moment that doesn't just shake a family, it fractures them, leaving cracks that will take the rest of the season to explore. The real weight of this episode comes from how the crash triggers a chain reaction nobody can control. The Norris family has already endured its fair share of hardship this season, but this time, the damage hits deeper. There's no villain to blame directly, no business rival pulling strings, no shady executive lurking in the background. Sometimes, fate just doesn't care who you are or how hard you fought. And that might be the cruelest lesson the show delivers. What matters now is how each character responds when the dust settles, whether they face the aftermath with strength or crumble under the pressure. But this is also where the show's signature tension kicks in. Because in Landman, disaster never stays isolated. One tragedy always bleeds into another corner of the story. Tommy, already juggling the weight of leadership, family, and responsibility, finds himself pulled in different directions. His father, played by Sam Elliott, whose presence alone shifts the emotional tone of every scene, is forced to confront his own regrets. Their strained relationship becomes even more fragile as the family struggles to understand what the crash truly means. Secrets start to surface in ways nobody expected, widening emotional distances that were already deep enough to swallow a lesser family whole. The episode also reminds us that the oil industry isn't just a backdrop, it's a pressure cooker. Deals, deadlines, and dangers don't pause for personal tragedy, and that harsh reality hangs heavy over every conversation. The land doesn't stop moving just because someone's world has. And as rumors spread, as questions grow louder, and as people start pointing fingers in every direction, you can feel the tension building like a storm rolling across the plains. Yet, even with all the chaos, the writing slips in small moments that make everything feel real. A hesitant look, a half-spoken sentence, a quiet realization that something has shifted for good. Those moments keep the suspense tight because they hint at what isn't being said. And in this show, the unsaid things are often the most dangerous. By the end of this first section of Episode 4's narrative, one thing becomes clear. A Day of Reckoning isn't just about one event. It's the trigger, the spark, the moment that exposes fault lines that have been there all along. And once those lines split open, there's no telling what will come next. In the aftermath of the crash, Episode 4 shifts into a heavier, more unsettling rhythm, as if the entire world of the show has slowed just enough for every character to feel the weight of what's happened. The Norris family tries to steady themselves, but the ground beneath them keeps shifting, refusing to offer any sense of stability. The silence after tragedy is often louder than the event itself, and here, that silence becomes its own kind of threat. Conversations feel shorter, tempers rise faster. Every glance carries a question no one wants to speak aloud. It's in these cracks that the real tension of the episode begins to grow. While everyone is trying to understand the crash, they're also wrestling with the unspoken fear that this wasn't just an accident. And once that fear takes root, it spreads quickly. Tommy moves through this chaos like a man caught between two storms, one inside his family, one inside the industry. The responsibility weighing on him is almost visible as he tries to keep everyone steady, even though he's barely holding himself together. Sam Elliott's character, his father, becomes a larger force here, bringing a mix of old wounds and hard truths that Tommy isn't ready to face. Their conversations feel like collisions, quiet, sharp, unavoidable. There's a sense that years of buried resentment are finally inching their way to the surface, but grief has a way of stripping people down to their rawest selves, and for the Norris men, that rawness is both powerful and dangerous. The crash forces them into the same emotional room, but nothing about that closeness feels safe. Meanwhile, the outside world refuses to give them space to breathe. News of the incident spreads fast, and with it comes a wave of suspicion and speculation. In a place where reputations are currency, the Norris name suddenly feels fragile. Partners start asking questions, competitors begin circling, and those who were already skeptical of the family's recent decisions now sense an opportunity to push harder. The oil field doesn't pause for anyone's grief, and Episode 4 reminds us of that with ruthless clarity. Every moment of vulnerability becomes a potential weakness, and everyone in town knows exactly how to exploit a weakness when they see one. But what makes this section especially gripping is the creeping sense that something darker is lurking just outside the frame. A few odd comments, a coincidence that feels a little too convenient, a detail that doesn't quite add up. The show never spells it out fully, not yet, but the writing makes it impossible to ignore the possibility that the crash may not be as random as it seems. Whether that suspicion is true or simply a product of grief, the tension it creates is unmistakable. It's the kind of unease that settles in slowly and doesn't let go. Angela's presence adds another layer to the fallout. Her attempts to keep the household functioning only reveal how fractured everything has become. Even the simplest interactions, setting a table, preparing a meal, checking on a family member, carry surprising emotional weight. In Landman, domestic scenes are never just domestic. They're moments where the truth threatens to slip out, where pretenses fall apart, and where the smallest misstep can ignite a conflict. The family dynamic tightens, frays, and tightens again, like a rope pulled too far in both directions. As the episode pushes deeper into this emotional fog, it becomes clear that the reckoning isn't just about the crash. It's about everything the family has avoided, everything they've refused to confront, everything they believed they could outrun. Tragedy has a way of opening old wounds, and in this case, it exposes the fault lines in their relationships, their business, and even their sense of safety. By the end of this section, the family is left navigating a landscape where every step is uncertain, every conversation is loaded, and every truth feels like it could shatter the fragile balance they're trying to keep. The storm isn't over, it's just begun. As Episode 4 pushes deeper into the heart of its story, the truth begins surfacing in ways no one is prepared for. This is where the episode shifts from raw emotion to sharp, simmering tension, where the Norris family starts realizing that what they think they know about the crash may not be the full picture. The whispers spreading around town grow louder, and suddenly everyone has a theory, a motive, or a suspicion. The idea that this tragedy might have roots in something more deliberate begins to creep into the family's conversations, not spoken directly but hinted at in the tightening of a jaw, the pause before an answer, the heavy silence stretching between words. It's the kind of atmosphere where doubt feeds on itself, and once it starts, there's no stopping it. Tommy feels this pressure more than anyone. He's caught in the center of a storm that's building from every direction: his family, his work, his past, and the land he depends on. Each step forward feels like walking blindfolded across uneven ground. Questions follow him everywhere, and he knows that if he chooses wrong, the consequences won't be small. His father's presence only intensifies the situation, not because he's causing trouble, but because he sees through Tommy in a way almost no one else can. Their conversations become increasingly loaded, filled with half-truths and caution, as if both men are aware that one wrong sentence could ignite everything they've been trying to hold together. Sam Elliott's steady, grounded energy becomes a mirror Tommy doesn't want to look into, one that reflects his fears, his guilt, and his suspicion that he's missing something important. The oil world, meanwhile, tightens around the family like a vice. Deals that once felt solid suddenly begin to wobble, and allies grow colder. People who smiled at the Norris name last week now seem more interested in keeping their distance. That's the danger of power in West Texas. It shifts fast, and when it moves, it doesn't warn you first. The industry doesn't care about personal loss, and Episode 4 makes that painfully clear. Every handshake feels less trustworthy, every promise thinner, every conversation just a little too rehearsed. The same people expressing sympathy are the ones lining up to take advantage of the family's weakened position. But the most unsettling part comes from the small coincidences that follow the crash. Numbers that don't match, a timeline that slips, someone who should have answers suddenly claiming they don't remember. A piece of information conveniently missing. These details don't scream conspiracy, but they whisper it. And sometimes a whisper carries farther than a shout. The episode doesn't confirm anything directly, but it plants enough seeds to make the audience question everything. The writing leans into this uncertainty, creating a slow, creeping tension that never fully releases. Angela becomes an unexpected anchor in this section, but not because she brings peace. Instead, she brings clarity, sharp, sometimes painful clarity. She sees the things others overlook, the inconsistencies that hide in plain sight. Her quiet observations become the beginnings of questions that no one wants to answer. Even in her attempts to comfort or support, there's an underlying awareness that something about this tragedy feels wrong. And the more she notices, the harder it becomes for the family to pretend everything is normal. The emotional stakes also rise as each character begins confronting truths they've avoided for too long. Old mistakes resurface, past decisions feel heavier, guilt spreads like smoke through the house, impossible to ignore. The show doesn't rely on dramatic outbursts. Instead, it uses subtle cracks in the characters' behavior to reveal just how fragile everything has become. Every moment feels like a build-up to something inevitable, something waiting just out of sight. By the end of this section, one thing becomes clear. The Norris family isn't just dealing with grief, they're facing a puzzle that grows more dangerous with every missing piece. The tragedy that shattered their world may be only the first step in a much larger unraveling. And as the truth edges closer, the feeling settles in that whatever answers they find next may hurt even more than the questions. The reckoning is far from over. It's tightening its grip. As Episode 4 drags the Norris family deeper into uncertainty, the emotional and political pressure begins squeezing from every direction, creating moments where even the smallest misstep could shift the entire story. This is the part of the episode where the tension stops simmering and starts tightening, slowly, deliberately, like a rope pulling taut. No one is given room to breathe. No one gets a moment to step back. Every decision feels like it carries weight, and every word spoken seems to land with an echo. It's here that the show leans into its signature intensity, turning quiet encounters into battlegrounds and casual conversations into tests of loyalty, truth, and self-control. Tommy's world narrows dramatically in this section as he tries to maintain control over a situation that is growing too large and too chaotic to manage. He's torn between protecting his family and protecting the business, knowing that letting either one slip could send everything crashing down. There's a sense that he's trying to outrun something. But the faster he moves, the closer it gets. The more he tries to keep things together, the more they threaten to fall apart. It's a kind of desperation that doesn't show through shouting or anger, but through exhaustion and the quiet cracks in his composure. His father sees these cracks, and while he doesn't push, his presence alone forces Tommy to confront truths he'd rather ignore. The old man has weathered more storms than most people could survive, but he knows this one is different. He can feel the danger rising, even if no one is willing to name it. Meanwhile, the people around the family seem to sense vulnerability and begin approaching with motives that grow harder to read. Some offer support that feels too polished, too rehearsed, like it's hiding something beneath the surface. Others start asking sharper questions, the kind that suggest curiosity but drip with suspicion. Business rivals show up in unexpected ways, smiling thinly and pretending to care while clearly looking for an opening. Every handshake feels like a trap waiting to snap shut. This is where the oil world shows its darker nature, not through explosions or dramatic confrontations, but through quiet maneuvers, subtle pressure, and silent power plays. It's the kind of environment where trust becomes a rare currency, and even the closest allies start to feel like potential threats. Angela's role becomes more complex in this section as she struggles to keep the household steady while sensing the emotional divide widening around her. She tries to hold on to routine, hoping it might anchor everyone, but nothing feels normal anymore. Even simple tasks become reminders of the imbalance creeping through the family. Her instincts sharpen, catching details others overlook. Small shifts in behavior, inconsistencies in what people say, strange timing that doesn't feel random. She's not trying to investigate, but the truth keeps revealing itself through the smallest cracks, and she can't ignore what she sees. Her presence becomes a quiet force in the episode, steady but unflinching, because sometimes the most dangerous truths are the ones you discover accidentally. The town itself also becomes a character in this section. The people, the landscape, the energy, they all shift subtly, reflecting the storm gathering around the Norris name. Rumors ripple through the community, changing tone as they move from ear to ear. Some claim the crash was unavoidable, others hint at recklessness. A few suggest something darker, and in a place where gossip can shape reality, these whispers start to sting. The family feels watched, judged, evaluated, as if everyone is waiting for someone to slip. This pressure becomes another obstacle they must navigate, another layer of tension pulling them toward a breaking point. What makes this section especially tense is how the episode blurs the line between coincidence and intention. Every little detail starts to feel connected, even if the characters can't prove it. A name mentioned too casually, a meeting that ends too early, a conversation that avoids the most important question. The writing leans into this ambiguity, keeping the audience guessing and the characters on edge. It creates that unsettling feeling that something big is coming, something that's been building quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. By the end of this section, the reckoning feels closer than ever. The crash that shook the Norris family is no longer just a tragedy, it's a turning point, a catalyst, a warning. And as the shadows lengthen and pressure mounts, it becomes clear that Episode 4 isn't simply telling a story of loss. It's preparing the ground for revelations that may alter everything the family thought they knew. The real breaking point is approaching, and the question now isn't whether it will come, it's who will still be standing when it does. By the final stretch of Episode 4, the slow burn that has been building throughout the hour finally reaches its peak. The shadows that have been tightening around the Norris family no longer sit quietly in the background. They step forward, demanding attention. This is where the episode reveals its true intention, not to shock for the sake of drama, but to peel back the layers of every character until there's nothing left to hide behind. The reckoning hinted at from the very beginning finally arrives, not with a single explosive moment, but through a series of realizations that hit harder than any physical blow. Each character is forced to confront something they've been avoiding, and each truth lands with a weight that changes the direction of the story entirely. Tommy, pushed to his breaking point, finally sees the consequences of the choices he's made, the secrets he's kept, and the responsibilities he's tried to carry alone. The crash becomes more than a tragedy. It becomes a mirror. It shows him the truth about how fragile his world really is, how quickly things can spiral when the pressure becomes too much, and how isolating leadership can be when everything around you is falling apart. For the first time this season, he can't run from the truth, and he can't hide behind the demands of the oil field. He has to face what's right in front of him, even if it forces him to question people he once trusted or decisions he believed were unshakable. The fear he carries isn't just about the crash, it's about what the crash reveals. His father's presence intensifies this reckoning. Sam Elliott brings a weight to the story that can't be ignored, and the episode uses that weight to push Tommy into seeing the emotional fractures that have been widening between them for years. Their relationship finally reaches a point where the tension can no longer be smoothed over with silence or half-hearted attempts at connection. There are no shouting matches or dramatic confrontations, just the raw, quiet truth that time doesn't heal everything, and some wounds don't close unless someone is willing to open them fully. The crash forces them to face not just the present danger, but the years of unresolved pain that have shaped who they are. Meanwhile, the rest of the world keeps moving, and the forces circling the Norris family begin to make their intentions known. Some approach openly, others quietly, but all of them sense that this moment of vulnerability is an opportunity. The power dynamics shift in ways that feel almost predatory. Agreements that once seemed certain now feel conditional. Partnerships begin to stretch thin. And the family realizes that the worse things get at home, the more the outside world tries to push in and take advantage. It's the perfect storm, personal grief colliding with professional instability. And the show uses this collision to create a feeling of tension that doesn't let up even for a second. Angela's growing awareness of the situation becomes crucial here. Her instincts sharpen into something unignorable. She senses the danger creeping toward the family, even if she can't yet put a name to it. The truth begins building around her like a puzzle coming together piece by piece. Her intuition becomes a quiet alarm bell, one the audience can hear clearly even if the characters around her are still trying to dismiss it. She realizes that the crash wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning. The first ripple in a wave that's about to hit harder than anyone expects. By the time the episode closes, the Norris family stands at the edge of something much bigger than they imagined. The tragedy that started the day has grown into a threat that touches every part of their lives: family, business, relationships, and safety. The reckoning isn't just an emotional one. It's a shift in the world they thought they understood. And the frightening part is how quietly it arrives, how naturally it weaves into their lives, how unavoidable it feels. The final moments of episode 4 leave the audience with a sense of dread, wrapped in anticipation. Answers feel close, but the danger feels closer. The shadows have stepped forward, but the full picture remains just out of reach. And as the screen fades, one truth becomes clear. Whatever lies ahead for the Norris family, the real storm hasn't even hit yet. The reckoning has begun, and it's only going to get darker from here.